Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
I think, are we live? Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed? I'll tell you what, Dr. Shealy. I just was looking at our Facebook page, and we don't use Facebook the way most people do. We don't talk about, what our puppy did on the living room floor, and show all our friends. I don't do that, but what we do is we send out a message every day about what the broadcast is going to be about. That's it. Except today, I got a really interesting response. And there's a gentleman whom I know, and he lives in the Carolinas. His name is Ron Gibson. Ron Gibson is a really good guy. And he's been taking this broadcast and posting it on YouTube every day, along with Alex Jones and Michael Rivero. So those are the three broadcasters that he has selected to post on YouTube. Well, he got a message. And the message is, let's see. I want to read it exactly. Oh, it says, from Ron Gibson, just got this message after trying to post the YouTube link to today's show. You're temporarily blocked. It looks like you were misusing this feature by going too fast. You've been blocked from using it. So I went to another site. Dr. Shealy, this is almost up there with having your obituary published in the Boston newspaper.
In my opinion, today's social milieu is worse than it was for the past 50,000 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So either they didn't like the content of one of the broadcasts, which includes USA Prepares, or we're gaining traction, and he's getting people that like him faster than they would like, or it's something like that. I have a feeling it has to do with content. And, Mike Rivero, good guy. Alex Jones, good guy. And our broadcast, talks about all kinds of things that are not typically discussed. And because of that, I think they did it, Alex or Mike Rivera or we, or all together, we did it. And so I think that's a nice award to get, to be blocked from YouTube. So the big guys are taking aim at us collectively, and they shut down Ron Gibson's channel for a couple days at least. And they've also shut USA Prepares down. So this would be twice for us that we got shut down.
I'm in good company.
Yeah. So,
if the establishment doesn't like us, that means we're right.
We're over the target. So I just wanted to share that with our class. So if you're trying to figure out how to get to us on YouTube, it might be difficult to get the current content, but that's okay. There's another place you can go. You can use the listen line, the telephone listen line, which is 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. It's up 24 hours a day. You can also go to Republic Broadcasting. They pick up this broadcast as well. It's one day delayed, and they've got a listen line over there at Republic Broadcasting, 605-562-5111. Then you type in the option number 4. The number 4, 605-562-5111, option 4. Those are two ways. You can go to gcnlive.com and listen to the archives there as well. Just go to USA Prepares. So anyway, that's the latest news about the media. And Dr. Shealy, we were going to do something today, and we're going to move it to next week, which is we had some technical difficulties on my end. It's all my fault. And we're going to do a scalar energy on-site description. So we're going to do that next week, next Wednesday.
Now, wait a minute, though. I don't think you should ascribe fault to you when it's electronic equipment.
Well, okay. Yeah, but, you know, I've got the controls, and I've got the keyboard, and I've got the screwdriver, and if all else fails, I've got a 2-pound sledgehammer. I've got all that right here.
I know that, but you know my attitude towards modern electronic equipment, and I don't consider it human.
Yes, and if it can cause problems, it likes to do that in a large way. Yes, I agree with that. So we're going to do that next week I'll be live from your location at your clinic. And will Dr. Sergey Sorin be with us at that time as well?
Unfortunately, let me see. Next Wednesday, I think he's out of town. I'll let you know in a minute, but I'm pretty sure. It's, yes. No, he is here. He is here. He's leaving on Thursday. So he will be with us.
Wonderful. And, Dr. Shealy, one thing that maybe we should just share a few minutes with our class about, and that is the stress that a doctor is under. When you and I had dinner with, when you invited me to dinner with Dr. Sergey Sorin, his wife, Ed from Florida, and Mrs. Finelli, we were talking, and I asked the question about, what is it really like as an ER doctor, emergency room doctor, and I don't know if this is common knowledge, but ER doctors lose patients, and they may lose one a day. They may lose on the average of more than one a day, one per shift. That has got to be pretty stressful, because there's the fight to keep that person alive. Then there's the final moments when you're losing that patient. Then there's the moment when you do lose that patient. Then there's the seconds after that when it sinks in that all that you did not keep that person alive despite your best efforts. And then we're going to have to tell a family, and they're right outside that door.
Well, you really do, and everywhere. Of course, the emergency room is a place where it's sort of a daily event, but no matter where you are in practice of medicine, the entire situation is open to needing detachment. You can't allow yourself to get into details, attachments. It does require a lot of detachment, and it happens even with chronic illness. Where I saw a gentleman a couple of days ago, and I had nothing that I could offer him. I don't know anything in conventional or alternative medicine that really is helpful to someone with his particular problem. And I think it's the first time ever that I've seen someone that bad, for which I know nothing in conventional or alternative medicine. I don't want to give out the details because of confidentiality, but I didn't charge him for coming in, because when I looked at him, I talked with him, and I just said, "Hey, I don't have any ideas." I even tried 6 times to get him a referral to a dermatologist in this town, and I finally got a message from one one office, we only take care of skin cancer. I mean, skin cancer is the only part of dermatology they do. It's a crazy system. The whole system sucks. I hope they totally revolutionize. I don't care to some extent what they do, but what we've got sucks.
What a sad comment, Dr. Shealy. What a sad commentary that you, as a medical doctor, using your intervention to try to help this person, resulted in we don't do that. I was talking with a friend a couple days ago, and I mentioned that we don't have the word no in our vocabulary in terms of if something has to be done. We don't say no. We say we're going to figure this out. We're going to do everything within our power to fix this problem, whatever it is. We just don't give up. We don't say no. Gosh, that is so sad that we have specialized to the point where we don't try new things. Is that it? We've specialized to the point where we're going to let someone suffer?
Well, interestingly, this gentleman actually asked me if I would help him go. I almost broke down, Vance. I can't do that. I mean, the idea, not only is it illegal, to me it's unethical. I just can't do it.
Wow. What a situation. And I have a feeling, Dr. Shealy, that just talking about this is opening some of our class's eyes that this is a really tough situation for a doctor to be in, where you're absolutely helpless to intervene and
yes.
Gosh, oh boy.
He actually just said, "Can you play a Dr. Kevorkian with me?" And I mean, that just broke me.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, Dr. Shealy, you're the second senior instructor at USA Prepares that I've talked to in about 18 hours who has seen tears because of the dilemmas we're in. We'll be right back. Doug in Springfield, hold that line. You're next. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. And if you'd like to go to the website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And Doug in Springfield, you're on live with Dr. Norm Shealy. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, you're on.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Doug.
Doug, you're on with Dr. Norman Shealy.
Okay, are you there, doctor?
Great, I'm right here. Give us
Okay. Well, here's a situation. About 9 months ago, I began to lose my sense of taste and smell. I still get it back a little bit periodically. Quite frankly, I went to acupuncture up in Kansas City, and then I went down to Branson to acupuncture there. Thought that may help. None of that did any good. Kansas City, she gave me some stuff to sniff up my nose. You may know who that is up there. And I have an aneurysm and atrial fibrillation. And I figure those things are going to crank up the blood pressure and everything else, so I stopped all that. Where can we go? Well, you know what the allergy problems are in this area,
right?
And
now there are several things. First of all, the medications that you're taking could even contribute to this. Whatever you were taking for atrial fibrillation. Number two, statistically speaking, you're very low in magnesium. Most people are, but anytime there's auricular fibrillation, you're almost 100% certain to be low in magnesium. Obviously, from a comprehensive point of view, you need to have a vitamin B12 checked and a very careful neurologic exam. There are only a couple of intrinsic things that can happen in the body. One is B12 deficiency is a major contributor to something like that. The other is rare and most unusual and most unlikely. But if everything else is ruled out and magnesium replacement intravenously does not work, then you would need an MRI of the brain, because every once in a while a little benign warty growth, not cancer, but a little thing called meningioma can grow down in that area where it can damage the smell nerve. So I would start with a careful neurologic exam and then intravenous magnesium chloride.
Okay. Of course, I'm 85 years old.
So I'll be 84 on Sunday. No big deal.
So they tell me that's a factor too.
It in healthy 85 to 90-year-olds, this is not a problem. But you've already got, you said you've got an aneurysm. Where is the aneurysm?
Aortic.
Aortic aneurysm. Okay. So
I've had it for several years, and
okay, so we know you may be deficient also in copper, because copper weakens arterial walls.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll check with the internist and see where we go from there then. But you recommend an MRI of the brain?
Not until you had at least a vitamin B12 or serum copper level, because those are ones that can be corrected so easily.
Okay.
Now, by the way, a blood magnesium level is the most useless test in the world. You have to do a little scraping, like where you get a few cells off underneath the tongue, and send it off to get your intracellular magnesium level.
Okay. Can you recommend somebody in Springfield, or would you prefer not to say?
Well, of course, they could recommend me.
Well, you're not working anymore.
Of course I am.
Where?
My clinic opened again in April when Dr. Sergey Sorin joined me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Call 861-5538. 861-5538.
Okay. All right. I will do that. I didn't know you were back.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Okay,
Doug, I have a quick question. You still there?
Yeah.
You're talking about the loss of taste and smell.
Correct.
What is that like when you lose that? What are the feelings that you have? Can you describe that to our listening audience? What it's like to lose the sense of smell?
First of all, you didn't realize. All of a sudden, I thought, my gosh, I can't taste anything. And then I realized, I can't smell anything either. What's it feel like? Well, you feel you want to grasp for anything you can find, because you got a nice piece of steak sitting in front of you, and I love steak. You can't taste it. It's frustrating as the devil. So then you start adding salt and everything else to try and do something, but nothing works.
Can you hold that thought? Can you stay with us for a couple more minutes? Doug is calling in from Springfield, Missouri, and Doug lost his sense of taste and smell, and he mentioned to us that he started by adding salt, and I guess more salt. Doug, the question I'd like to ask to help our class understand this. So you've added spices, and did that have any effect?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It becomes frustrating. You try everything, and you think, well, maybe this will work. Of course, that's why I went to acupuncture as a last resort. But no, I couldn't find anything that enhanced any taste or smell.
Okay. Does this produce anxiety within you, being absent the sense of taste and smell?
I have to say, it really does. You're not to the point that it get depressed or anything like that, but it becomes frustrating, to put it that way.
And what I was thinking about is, like when our dog eats, the first thing he does is he smells it, and I guess he's trying to determine if it's something he would like to eat, and maybe he's trying to determine whether it might have spoiled, and maybe it might make him sick. Do you rely on others to say, I'd like to have that glass of milk, but I'm not. Is this okay? Is this smell okay? Because that's what I do. I mean, before I have a glass of milk, I smell it.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't. I don't smell it. I don't. No, I don't do that. Now, I happen to be a veterinarian, retired veterinarian, so I'm very much aware how dogs operate. But also, they'll eat things that are rotten.
Yeah.
Because there's an odor that they get from decaying. It is butyric acid. Butyric acid to them smells like perfume, like rancid butter. That's butyric acid. So that's what dogs like. So, but to them, the smell, they're not smelling so much. I think they smell to see if it's appealing. And if it's rotten, it doesn't make much difference if they like it. Me, when I go by odor, yes, I don't smell everything. Because, I've been around long enough, you look at it, you know whether you like it or not. But,
Okay.
yeah.
And was this a gradual decline in your ability to taste and smell? Or did this come on?
I don't believe
instantly?
so. I don't believe so. No. Just all of a sudden I realized, my gosh, I can't taste or smell. But though it wasn't gradual.
Well, let me ask you one other question, and if you decide that you don't have to answer this on the air, but we do not have a veterinarian as an instructor at USA Prepares, and if you'd like to consider doing that, would you give your phone number to our engineer before you hang up?
Yeah, sure would.
You would?
Yep. Sure, I'm retired. Might as well do something. You've retired. You're back. So let's keep it going.
Okay,
and I'm just down the street from you, too, so that's
as
it.
our Australian buddies would say, good on you, mate.
Doug, I'm so glad you called to share with us your experience, and I look forward to chatting with you. So if you just give your telephone number and to our engineer, I'll call you.
Okay, very good. And I'll give you a call down at the office there, too.
Hey, great.
Okay,
thanks so much.
Day.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Dr. Shealy, that was very interesting, the loss of taste and smell. And I think we take a lot for granted, don't we?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we take breathing for granted. There's so many things that are automatic.
And that was... Yes.
For most of us, you don't have to put your nose to the glass of milk to smell it. You can, just having it there, you can smell from a distance.
Yes. And, as he was describing this, as Doug was describing this, I was thinking about being in my vehicle behind an old truck, and this thing just stunk to high heavens. And I thought, wow, that truck does not have a catalytic converter, and you can really smell one of those vehicles without a catalytic converter from a great distance. And I mentioned to our son, I said, they were all like this. Back in the 60s, all vehicles were like this, and this is what it was horrible being in a traffic jam. And then, as Doug was saying this, he wouldn't know that. He would not know that he was in an area that had a lot of pollution because he's lost that sense.
That's right.
So it's important. And I believe that's why we were given that sense, because it can help keep us out of danger.
Well, that is true. And it is called the most primitive of our senses. And it is the one that, it has relationships to every aspect of life, including love, sexuality, ability to survive with getting the right food, et cetera, et cetera. It's an exquisitely important sense.
I just want to share with the class, I just received Doug's name, his telephone number, and I'm going to give him a call, after the broadcast, and we'll see if we can have a veterinarian as a new instructor. I'm all excited about that. And Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for helping Doug.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Yes. Dr. Shealy, I received an email from you talking about heart disease. And you mentioned this morning before the broadcast when you and I chatted to talk about what we're going to do with the study, the scalar energy study, moving that to next week. You mentioned coronary artery disease on the phone. And we talked about prevention. We talked about diagnosis. We talked about what you can do to treat it. Can we spend a greater part of this broadcast, this hour and next hour, discussing that?
You bet. After all, in a book that Carolyn Mason and I wrote back in 1988, I called it The Popular Way to Die. And it is still the number one cause of immediate death.
Okay.
And
so
it has
please
been
continue.
increasing ever since early 1900s when chlorination of water took place. Nobody talks about the fact that there is adequate evidence that chlorination of water increases the risk of heart disease. And then there's adequate information that fluoridation of water increases the risk of heart disease. And those are just two over which we have, no primary control. The only way we can control it is not to drink city water.
Well, that's almost impossible, Dr. Shealy. And let me give you an example. So let's say you have a hamburger and you put ketchup on it. The likelihood that ketchup was made using municipal waters, pretty high likelihood. If you have pickles and the pickles are in some kind of a brine that you buy in a jar from the Chinese factory outlet or wherever you end up buying it from, there's a likelihood that water has chlorine and fluoride in it, or at least had chlorine in it, but does have fluoride in it, right?
Well, that's my opinion of government in general. They poison us in everything they do. They poison us in chemtrails. They poison us by allowing 550,000 poisonous items to be released into the atmosphere every year. They poison us by having nuclear energy which cannot be controlled. They poison us at every level of life. So the number one cause of death ultimately is the government.
I was reading a story last night about there's this iridescent sheen floating down the Potomac, heading toward Washington, D.C. And it's okay because it's not a lot, and it won't harm the water supply, and everything's fine. Really? So there's this iridescent petrochemical sheen, and don't worry about it because it's okay. And I guess they're talking about parts per million as part of it. So if there were more parts per million, then they'd be worried maybe a little bit. But I don't want any iridescent sheen in my water. I don't want any. Well,
I don't want any sheen in my water.
Well, and I've been thinking about that as well. We shower daily here at our house. We think it's our civic duty, and we use shampoo. And I'm thinking, I want to figure out how I can use less shampoo. That way, less shampoo will go into our septic system. Less plastic will go into the landfill, these bottles. I want to use less of everything that pollutes, that contaminates. It's really frustrating to get away from some of these chemicals. And I've gotten away from toothpaste for quite a while now. I've been using baking soda because, number one, I don't want to use the toothpaste in the tubes. And when I was a child, toothpaste came in lead tubes. Lead. Not plastic, lead. So we were contaminating ourselves with lead by brushing our teeth, let alone the fluoride. Okay, coronary artery disease. So now we have to be concerned about fluoride and chlorine, and that's easy to fix because if you get a ProPure water filter, it will remove most of the chlorine and most of the fluoride. And you can get that at usaprepares.com and click on the shop tab, SHOP, and you can order them and we'll ship them out right away. And we're at the lowest price in the country. Because we sell them at the same price as everybody else, except we offer an instant rebate. And the reason we say it that way is we're not allowed to discount them. So we don't discount them. We just give you a rebate. Dr. Shealy, so we know that fluoride and chlorine cause coronary artery disease. How significant is that in the disease?
Well, the only way I can add it up is that there was almost no coronary artery disease prior to chlorination of water. In other words, within 10 years of the beginning of chlorination of water, the epidemic, if you will, of heart disease began. And then, of course, in the 1940s, when fluoride was added, it was already so bad that nobody really noticed the difference. But nobody's paid any attention to it. When I say nobody, almost nobody. Just a few physicians have written about it. But it's extremely uncommon for anybody in the major medical profession to warn people about this. You should not drink city water. I don't think you should bathe in it, really.
That was my next question, because if you bathe in it or if you take a shower in it, which might even be worse, you're breathing in larger quantities because that water becomes atomized, if you will, coming out of that shower head.
Yep.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Class, we're talking with Dr. Norman Shealy about coronary artery disease. Dr. Shealy, we mentioned fluoride in the water and chlorine. So when a person takes a shower, and you mentioned a bath, is there a significant risk of getting coronary artery disease by the chlorine in the air that is...
And probably cancer as well, because we've known at least for 60 years that chlorinated water turns certain things in the water system into carcinogenic agents. It's a really difficult problem, because chlorine, of course, does prevent infectious diseases that would be carried in the water. I don't know unequivocally whether it could be done with ultraviolet, for instance, for a city supply. I don't think it'd be strong enough. But the evidence that certain items that naturally get into water from nature and otherwise can become carcinogenic when they're exposed to chlorine. I first read about it back in the mid-'60s.
Mm-hmm. Well, can't chlorine kill every living thing on Earth? I mean,
of course. I call it, it was the first weapon of mass destruction. Mm-hmm. Chlorine gas.
My grandfather was gassed in World War I.
Exactly. So it's been around, they started using it about almost around the same time as chlorinating water.
Okay, so what is your recommendation regarding chlorinated city water?
If you live in a city, get yourself a total house, apartment, whatever, dechlorinated. There are ones that will take care of, not only your drinking water, but your bathing water.
Dr. Shealy, do you have information about living in a city and the incidence of coronary artery disease as a result of just life in the city?
Yes. Death in the city. Again, we've known this for decades, that people who live in a farm environment. Now that was, of course, before Roundup and some of the current pesticides and herbicides. Mm-hmm. I think the difference in city versus farm living has significantly decreased because of all the poisons that have been added to farming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see some of our farmer friends suffering disease, and their health is really deteriorated, and they do dumb things. They will spray insecticides and herbicides without respirators. They'll put insecticide, mix it with diesel fuel, and they'll go out into their herd of cows because the cows get flies on their faces in the summer, and they'll just mix the diesel fuel and the insecticide and put it in a bug sprayer, if you will, or a fruit tree sprayer type sprayer, and go out there and spray the faces and the backs of the cows. And the idea is the diesel fuel will extend the amount of insecticide so it goes farther, and they'll breathe that. There's no way that he can spray these animals and not breathe it. There's no way that the animals cannot breathe it. But that's what they do. I don't do that, but they do it, and I see I see these farmers, and they smell like diesel fuel. And I'll say, "Have you been working on your tractor?" No, just take care of the flies. Gosh, How is it possible that anyone would think that you could spray something on insects and have it kill the insects almost instantly and have no effect on us? How is that possible that we could get to the point where we don't understand how that could affect us? I don't know. And then we eat that meat, right? And that's what you get in the supermarkets and the grocery store. Beef that has been sprayed with insecticides. And
Got it.
And the animals, yes, and the animals eat the grasses that are under the fences that have been sprayed with Roundup. They eat that. Dr. Shealy, when we come back, symptoms of coronary artery disease, treatment of coronary artery disease, and maybe some more prevention. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. NormShealy.com. NormShealy.com. And that's where you can sign up for that free newsletter, the same one that I get multiple times per week. NormShealy.com. And that email address of yours is only used for you to get that newsletter. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norman Shealy. We've been talking about coronary artery disease. Dr. Shealy, what is coronary artery disease?
Well, coronary artery disease is a problem in which plaque, that is, deposits of cholesterol become calcified, et cetera, build up in the coronary arteries. Now, the coronary arteries is plural, or are plural, because there are a whole bunch of branches of the artery, but blockage of any of the major arteries of the heart can cause a heart attack or death. In fact, sudden death is not at all uncommon without any preceding symptoms necessarily. When the heart stops beating for whatever reason, well, you're going to be dead within 1 to 3 minutes. That's how long you can go without brain death when the heart, stops circulating blood and oxygen. It is and has been the leading cause of death for approaching 100 years now. And it is caused by many, many things. We've emphasized only the chlorination and fluoridation of water, but there are many other things that are part of the problem. And at the top of that list is the total field of stress. Interestingly, I've been doing an experiment the last week and a half on weightlifters. We are measuring their fatigue level, using certain things. And in these young, and I'm talking about these people are between 18 and 28 years of age, a third of the ones that I have tested so far come in with mild or moderate high blood pressure. And several of them knew that they had that already, and they say, well, it runs in my family. Now, for them, I say immediately, you must start using autogenic training. Because if everyone truly did autogenic training, I suspect you would cut the incidence of heart death by somewhere between 60 and 80%. That alone, that major stress-reducing technique is the only thing I know that has such a phenomenal success rate. Now, we know that obesity is probably the next most common contributor to coronary artery disease, as it is to type 2 diabetes. And, of course, the incidence of true obesity has gone up to 1/3 of all Americans, with actually 2/3 being overweight. And so obesity has now replaced all other factors as the number one contributor to premature death. Inactivity. We know that people who do not move, who do not stand an hour or more a day, are at increased risk of death. And again, the common way to die is a sudden heart attack. We know that people who would do just 1 minute of intense physical exercise every day, I mean, I call that halitosis is better than no breath at all, because, it does race the heart, and racing the heart is good. Now, interestingly, Vince, you know that 2 years ago, I gave up one form of exercise for another without thinking through adequately. I love jogging in a swimming pool, but I don't care to swim. So I got myself a 5-foot deep hot tub, and at least 5 days a week, I have spent 20 minutes at least vigorously. I mean, I can sort of jog in a hot tub 5 feet deep, 90 miles an hour sort of with my legs moving. But interestingly, I've noticed my legs recently just don't feel as strong. So about a week ago, I got on the treadmill again, because I used to do peak exercise on the treadmill 5 days a week, where I would do 30 seconds of vigorous, going to total exhaustion in 30 seconds, and then resting for a minute and going back, off and on 8 times. And that is probably the single best overall exercise for the heart. Well, I thought I was doing the same thing in the swimming pool or in the hot tub, but I'm not, because my feet don't get the impact of it. I don't get the bounce up. It's fun, but it's not as good. So I've gone back to jogging on the treadmill.
What about jogging in general? We have an instructor, a senior instructor, great guy, loves to jog, and I'm wondering, is he doing more damage to his joints? Is there something else he could do to get the exercise, the benefits of the circulatory component of the exercise, and not bang up those joints so much?
Well, it's interesting. I'll be 84 on a Sunday, and I've been pretty active all of my life, and I don't have a problem with my joints. Mm-hmm.
But you don't jog. But you don't jog down the road, right?
Well, that's true. Jogging outside is much rougher because of irregularities in the surface area. Mm-hmm. And I used to do that, by the way. However, for a number of years, I did jog outside. But since 1995, I've converted to doing it only on a treadmill. Mm-hmm. So only the first 60 years of life, more or less, did I do the outside vigorous stuff. Now, interestingly, again, halitosis better no breath at all. Soaking in a regular bathtub with hot water for 20 minutes races your heart. And there's good evidence that for your heart is almost as good as jogging. It doesn't give you the other muscle and, other endurance attributes that you get from a true exercise, but it does help your heart. All of these things are part of the whole picture. To me, at the top of my list is de-stress. In other words, don't kill yourself over stuff about which you can do nothing. You and I can talk about these things. Mm-hmm. And when I'm talking about these things, I am not emotionally attached to what I'm saying, if you know what I mean. I'm observing, but not reacting to the negativity. And that's the important thing, is to detach from the stuff you cannot change.
Well, I've had a chat with Joey in Michigan, and of course many of the other instructors, and we've talked to Rick Miller, and we've been talking about stress and detaching, and we've also decided, a bunch of us have just decided that we're not going to do things that are stressful. We're just not going to do them. So I have literally cut down, maybe even cut out my speaking engagements. Spending a couple days, 3 days, day to get there, 2 days there, day to return. These 1,000-mile trips to speak and be away from the farm, and then be concerned about the family. Are they able to do all the things without me on the farm? Are they able to take care of the animals? And all of those things are stressful. Just trying to coordinate all those things. And I've decided that I can fix that. I just won't go out and speak. That's one thing. Limiting those activities, those self-imposed deadlines that I have, just eliminating a lot of that, I think is great. It's great if you're in a position to do that. So that's one of the ways that I've approached stress. And I don't even, when I heard the word stress, Dr. Shealy, when people would say, I'm really stressed out, I go, what a bunch of pansies. How can they be affected by stress? But I realized that, yeah, you can, but the stress that they were thinking about wouldn't impact me at all, because I wouldn't even consider that stressful. To me, stress is when someone in your family's really sick and maybe dying. That's stressful.
Last week, Vince, I had a woman who was supposed to come in for a follow-up visit. She sent me an email the day before stating that she had been so distraught after the election that she'd gotten so ill, she went to the emergency ward. She actually was admitted to the hospital with all kinds of tests. Nothing was found. Her brain wasn't functioning well. Every symptom in her body was 10 times worse than it had ever been, all because of her obsession with her feeling of the negative aspect of the election. And I said, now look, you're killing yourself. You fight fiercely to things change if you think you can. If you know you cannot change them, then there's only one thing that can save your life, and that is to detach. Now, I've practiced this for well over 44 years, and it came about mainly through learning autogenic training way back in 1972. I know of no philosophy that I have gained in my entire 84 years as important as not allowing stuff over which you cannot possibly have control to get you so agitated that you could, destroy your body with inflammation, with a weak immune system, with cancer, with heart attacks. It is self-destructive. And telling people that, unfortunately, doesn't always work. They need to bathe themselves in air bliss.
As you say that, I was thinking about those employees who, let's say they work in New York City, and they live outside the city in another state, an adjoining state, and they commute in, and they get in these long traffic jams. And, are they going to get there on time? Are they going to be at work on time? All the stress of that. Those people have got to be killing themselves. And maybe they could just say, you know what? Let's throw it overboard and buy a farm. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we've been talking about coronary artery disease, and we've been talking about how it's the number one killer and what we can do to prevent letting that happen to us. Dr. Shealy, is there this plaque that you've discussed in our arteries, is there a way of getting rid of it?
Yes. The two excellent ways of getting rid of it that are unequivocal are chelation, which has been around for 60 or 70 years. The 99.99999% of physicians don't use it or recommend it, and yet there was over a $30 million NIH study proving that chelation works. But they don't do it because it doesn't. It competes with the procedure that cardiologists and cardiac surgeons like, coronary bypass surgery, which in my opinion is worse than chlorine and fluoride and Roundup combined. Coronary bypass surgery does not prolong life. It does get rid of angina pectoris, the pain of heart disease. But that can be gotten rid of with chelation, as well as another procedure called ECP, external counterpulsation. Both of them are highly, highly effective, safe, and strongly recommended. Now, even though Merciless has the equipment for ECP, they really don't use it because for $150,000 to $400,000, they can do coronary bypass surgery.
ECP, one more time. What does ECP stand for?
External counter pulsation. Right. They put big pressure, like big blood pressure cuffs around your calves, thighs, and buttocks, and they are all synchronized to pump together with every heartbeat. So, whoop, whoop. It activates the stem cells in your body, and, it's a phenomenal, wonderful tool. We've been debating getting it. The problem is the cardiologists and the cardiac surgeons don't like it, so they don't use it. And I'm afraid that they will attack me vigorously if I do it because I'm not a cardiologist.
What about chelation? Well, all right. So this external counter pulsation, would some of the benefits of that be achieved by just having a whirlpool tub, Dr. Shealy?
No, it's got to be very vigorous. And it does work. There's excellent long-term statistical results of it. But the cardiac surgeons have convinced Medicare to pay for ECP only in people who are too sick to have coronary bypass surgery. Now, then, if it's good for people too sick to have coronary bypass surgery, it must be great for everybody.
Sure. And how many sessions of this external counter pulsation treatment?
Need 35 sessions, 5 days a week for 7 weeks. Now, chelation is pretty much the same. You need at least 30 sessions of 1 a week. The chelation takes 2 to 3 hours to do the IV, and you don't do it every day. Once a week is adequate. So you spread it out really over, half a year really. But the ECP is better done every day, 5 days a week.
Okay. Now, for chelation, you said it's an IV. Is it, what actually happens? So you get this agent, this chelation or chelating agent. What's in that, and how does that work?
The active ingredient is something called EDTA. EDTA is the chemical that actually binds calcium and helps dissolve it out of your arteries. And again, it's been around for, now, I'll tell you what EDTA stands for, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. That's why we call it EDTA.
Okay. So are there any downsides to chelation with EDTA?
Probably, if properly done, none. It has to be given slowly.
Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit more when we come back. I can't imagine why, someone who is increasing in age wouldn't want to do that. Am I confused? We'll be right back. Class, quick announcement. The Greater Indianapolis Survival Expo, presented by RK, is December 3rd and 4th. So if you'd like to attend, they've got some great seminars. Craig Douglas of USA Prepares will be there. That's December 4th in Indianapolis. Also, if you'd like to go to the RK gun shows, 4 of them this weekend coming up. Ashland, Kentucky. Atlanta, Georgia. Springfield, Missouri. Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That's December 3rd and 4th, rkshows.com. rkshows.com. Great shows. I've been going to them for years. I think you'll have a great time. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about chelation therapy. So the question is, as we get older, if we have the possibility of plaque in our arteries, why would just about everybody not want to have chelation therapy? What would be the downside? Why not?
Well, it has to be done carefully. You must not use it in people who have kidney disease or liver disease. Those are the big negative effects. It's got to be done properly, obviously, but people who do it should know how to do it. In other words, you don't just give EDTA. You give with it some vitamins, some magnesium, some calcium, in order to prevent those from being pulled out with the deposits in the arteries. But properly done, and in people who don't have kidney or liver disease, it's extremely safe.
So this has to be done with medical supervision, with prescription in a doctor's office?
Yes.
Okay. And what about those who are allergic to pain? Is there pain involved in this other than the hypodermic needle?
Well, no. There's no pain from the injection intravenously. Most of the time you just sit in a reclining chair and rest.
Okay. And do you have a feel for what this might cost a person? Is this something that you do?
Well, I used to. When the clinic was running originally and we had a big staff, we're not doing it at this time. We are debating, instead of doing chelation, the ECP, because it's about the same cost. It's going to cost for a complete series somewhere between $4,500 and $5,000. The ECP is done more rapidly, has a quicker effect. The chelation is more, takes much longer. It's really a toss-up to some extent as to which route one prefers.
Okay. My research tells me told me that there were some products that are some products that are over-the-counter chelation products, but they're not approved for sale in the United States.
Actually, there are a number of oral chelation, EDT and other products. The biggest problem with those is they can be very irritating to the intestines. They can cause cramping, diarrhea, that sort of thing. So you have to be very slow and very careful when you try to do it orally.
So you can get these products orally for oral consumption?
Uh-huh. And it comes in tablets,
and that's with...
but I prefer, if you're going to take it orally, you take a really small dose compared to what you get intravenously. And you have to do it very slowly. That is, you have to take it up to 4 or 5 times a day instead of one big dose.
Mm-hmm. So 4 or 5 times a day. So what would the regimen be, Dr. Shealy? I'm fascinated by this, and I'm actually interested in. I'm going to have a heavy metals test, blood test done, because I'm wondering, have I been exposed to heavy metals, and if I have, then what do I do about it?
Well, the best thing to do is what's called a provocative chelation, where you take a single dose and check the output in the urine and measure all the heavy metals, cadmium, lead, arsenic, etc. Now, in order to get mercury out, you don't use EDTA, you use DMSA. And DMSA works pretty well for all the other metals as well. So the provocative test is 1 gram of DMSA.
Okay, 1 gram of DSA, then have a urine test.
Yes.
And where would that urine...
24 hours, yes.
Is that urine test done at a clinic like yours, or where would that be done?
Actually, you have to get a prescription to get the DMSA, and the urine then I would take to any lab test now. Okay.
And, I need to have any lab test now come on the air with us. And they were so busy that that our friend Mark from Any Lab Test Now in Springfield was unable to get on the air with us. But that'll be something that we're going to try our best to make happen. Okay, so for those interested in what would it cost for the do-it-yourself, if you will, oral chelation, Do you have an idea of what the compound
very
costs?
inexpensive. I would say a 6-month supply is what probably you have to do it orally. Probably wouldn't cost more than a couple $100.
Okay. And is that something that what would you suggest for those interested in the do-it-yourself oral chelation? What are the red flags? Don't do it if you what?
Well, don't do it if you've got known kidney damage, known liver, disease, or tuberculosis, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're fragile already, you don't want to add something like this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's because these toxins are going to be in greater quantities as they're released?
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good. So continuing our discussion about coronary artery disease, prevention.
Well, again, stress reduction.
Right?
Dietary-wise, I do
Yes.
like to have the total cholesterol below 200. I wouldn't argue if it's 195. And I like it 150 to 190 or 95. And then your high HDL, the high density, what's called the good cholesterol, you'd like that at 50 or above. Those are the things that, the healthy levels of cholesterol. You want your VDL, the very low density, to be below 100.
Okay.
And so that it is worth measuring those things in order to be certain. Now, there's another test that I believe every human being should have, not later than age 40, and that is a homocysteine, HOMOCYSTEINE. That is an abnormal protein that can occur with all kinds of things. It tends to be somewhat hereditary, and if your blood level of homocysteine is above 7.5, your risk of heart disease, stroke, and cancer is significantly increased. And the average doctor doesn't do this. I think you should have it at age, any time between age 30 and 40, and then maybe every 5 years to be sure that you haven't shifted into having a high homocysteine, because anything above 7.5 is toxic. And that isn't paid attention to. Other tests worth thinking about are something called high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's an indication of total inflammation in the body. And they say the normal range is 1 to 3. I actually like to have it less than 1. Because when it's 1 to 3, you're already, you don't want to be average in this country anymore when it comes to heart disease especially. You want to be well below average. So checking yourself for the cholesterol, the homocysteine, the high sensitivity C-reactive protein is something I think everybody should have, again, starting at somewhere between 30 and 40, and then maybe every 5 or 10 years, as long as it's normal.
Okay. So for what should we avoid eating, Dr. Shealy, and what should we eat? So, for example, kale, beets.
Well, the evidence is fair that very high levels of salt are not good. The evidence is much higher that trans fats, the so-called artificially hydrogenated fats that have been around now for 75 years or more, are extremely toxic. They are among the worst. The evidence is very poor for negative effects for the solid so-called fats out of red meats, for instance. The use of monounsaturated oils like olive oil is excellent. The evidence for the, multi, if you will, unhydrogenated fats like corn oil and others like that is very bad. So you should never, ever use in your cooking, salads and stuff like that, almost anything except the greatest of olive oils.
That means salad dressing in the bottles are probably not the way to go for most of those bottles.
Exactly.
Right?
Make your own.
Okay, so what I wrote down, Dr. Shealy, as a recap, and please correct me if I didn't get this accurately. Decrease salt is a good thing. Decrease artificially hydrogenated fats. Decrease is a good thing. Increase monounsaturated oils like olive oil. Increase the intake of or use olive oil. And decrease corn oils. So the negatives are salt, artificially hydrogenated fats, and corn oils. And the good is olive oil.
Right.
We'll be right back. Very quickly, Dr. Shealy, are you on stage tonight?
Last one we're doing is the DoubleTree on diabetes tonight.
Fascinating.
We'll be doing them at our office starting in January.
So you're going to be hosting meetups at your office in January. Did I get that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So the last one at the DoubleTree Hotel in Springfield, Missouri is tonight, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, plus time after 7 o'clock for questions and answers. Absolutely free. DoubleTree Hotel, Springfield, Missouri, tonight. Last night. The last night you're going to be doing it at the DoubleTree, right?
You've got it.
Okay, class. I hope you can make it there. Mike in Tennessee, welcome. It's great to have you on the air with us.
Greetings, gentlemen. Real quick, I just wanted to mention Dr. Shealy. Recently, I was talking to a fellow that was a F-18 pilot, now out of the military, and his wife is also in the military. They both went to the Middle East. They both had all the shots, and she's pregnant with a child that has part of a brain. He called it something 13. They told him it was a genetic disorder and had nothing to do with the vaccines whatsoever or the exposure to depleted uranium. I've been trying to talk to this guy about different things going on, such as this recent shooting in Ohio. Well, they said a 28-year-old guy was responsible for attacking several people, but what they didn't tell you is that he didn't actually shoot anybody. He was stabbing people, and the first day of this, there were reports that there was another man that got out of the car with him, which I suspect was a handler, because this guy who's not 28, who's actually 18 years old, had no reason to assault these people. He wasn't one of these guys that was involved in any kind of militaristic operation. Apparently, he's another one of these control agents who's under some kind of mind control. I believe because the media, they can't get people to watch the mainstream media anymore, so what they do is they create these incidents so people will watch the news to get updates so that they can have people watching their advertisers for commercial benefit.
Mike, what was your question about the brain? Were you asking a question about this partial brain?
Yeah, this child has got only part of a brain, and he's probably about 3 weeks from delivery, and I was trying to encourage them to contact you. Don't know if they did. Did you get a call from the man?
Well,
are you asking me or Dr. Shealy?
Dr. Shealy.
Well, yeah, okay. Obviously, this is a very serious thing, and in my opinion, there are all kinds of toxicities can cause this. Genetic, maybe, but toxic environmental stuff, more likely. That's just a likelihood, in my opinion.
Well, I'd given him your information, trying to get him to contact you to see if there's anything that he can do in the short time his development has left inside the mother to maybe give him some type of benefit before he's born, and I didn't know if he contacted you or not.
No, he has not.
Okay. But I find it interesting that, while I was flying with this guy, he's an F-18 pilot, he couldn't even find the airport. I had to show him where the airport was, and he's got all the instruments in front of him that you could ever want, but he couldn't look outside the window and find his way around. And like the deal in Ohio, he's fixated on the mainstream media, and it's like mind control. Whatever they say, he believes, and when you show him the facts, he can't wrap his mind around something that's not presented to him by the mainstream media. Total disconnect.
Well, I think, unfortunately, at least 50% of Americans are still in coma, if you will, in thinking. I mean, that's those who voted for Hillary, in my opinion, are all in some kind of coma.
Well, they said that she's looking at now running in 2020. I wonder if that be the case, do they actually have some life extension technology they're not telling us about?
Well, we can only hope not.
In that case. Mike Parsons, USA Prepares Instructor, thanks for calling in, and thanks for sharing some humor with us.
Have a great day, gentlemen. God bless.
Thanks, Mike.
You too, Mike. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us. And class, if you'd like to meet Dr. Shealy in person tonight, the Doubletree Hotel, Springfield, Missouri, 6 p.m. through 7 p.m. Bring your questions. There'll be time for questions. And this will be the last event at the Doubletree. And Dr. Shealy's moving the meetups to his office in Springfield starting January. We'll keep you apprised of that.